Hey there, welcome. Today I want to talk about anger and fear. In the last two videos, I've been a little provocative, if I've uploaded them, and they were about how we react to the word God. We have a tendency for secularity, usually out of fear of what other people think, usually out of an uncertainty in spiritual notions, and maybe even agreed to be popular amongst the masses. And in the last video I talked about how faith is implicit and God is existence itself. And I outlined this by basically refuting any reductionist standpoint we may have about reality, how we know for a fact it will never be the reductionist view, because our reductionist, scientific empirical data suggests it is incomplete in and of itself, and thus we can't actually make a theory or an idea of reality that's accurate, and we require having faith that existence in fact exists to even do anything. And so this is where the faith is implicit and God is simply existence itself, because existence is infinite. And whether that was followed or understandable, I just want to talk about our fears and our angers in this life. And first off, we'll start with fear. A lot of us are afraid of others. We're afraid of losing resources from other people. We're afraid of being judged by other people and thus having negative moments in life. We're afraid of struggle and pain. But I also think we're afraid of God. We're afraid of being watched, of some being knowing our most intimate secrets, knowing our impurities, knowing our negative intentions and judgments that we place upon the world, knowing our vices, knowing when we do things that are causing suffering, whether to ourselves or others, even though we know, we still do it. We are afraid of a lot in this world. Even greed is actually a form of fear. We're afraid of lack. We're afraid of, apathy. We're afraid of boredom. We're afraid of change. We're afraid of unpredictability. So we want more and more and more things that we have come to value, things that give us instant pleasure, or things that we think make us comfortable because they did in the past. And this is just the fear of the vast unknown, the fear of death, the fear of transformation, the fear of something beyond our senses. And at the end, that is the fear of God. Like I spoke of, how existence is beyond our senses. It's beyond our data. We know this. Not really an argument to be made against this. It's just factual. And that's what we call God in non-duality. That's what the infinite is just the existence itself beyond our wildest imaginations and interpretations. And we are afraid of that because it is unknown. And yet, we have to trust it. Even if we don't think that we trust it, in the same way of how we view a Christian having faith in God, we automatically trust it to some extent no matter what we do, because we continue on. Even if we were to commit suicide, we trust that suicide ends the pain. We have faith in something, no matter what, even if we misunderstand this something. And I think that that's the real area of issue in a lot of the spiritual practices. Even a monastery, unless I think monastic life proves itself to beget enlightenment, to beget perfection or love, without much error, I don't think there's much of a reason to do it. I think we do monastic life almost out of fear of chaos, or what we call chaos, which is basically not controlling others. The fear of the unpredictable behavioral systems of other people, the fear of having to be spontaneous, the fear of having to embrace the moment as it is without limitation. This is why I don't feel I can really live in a monastic setting, because, regardless of the discipline that it might imbue in me, I know that at the end of the day it's going to be too controlling, and that there are so many aspects of infinite beauty that are repressed for no good reason other than fear. Fear of maybe not having a robotic checklist of things to do every day. This extends to just people waking up at a certain time, doing tasks allotted to them, having the errands to run, and then having a checklist of pleasures to meet each day. We almost like routine. We get sick of it at one point, but we're innately, seemingly afraid of the unknown, afraid of uncertainty. Because that's really being afraid of God, being afraid of the infinite potential of every moment, the infinite uncontrollability of this universe. Because we are merely these tiny little fleshy beings that have such a small amount of knowledge and capacity within our framework to control anything, to control this cosmos. But we trick ourselves into thinking otherwise, and we subdue nature, we subdue women, we subdue children, we subdue minorities, we subdue the poor, we subdue foreign entities, ecosystems, animals, all for our routine checklist of predictable things we've come to accept. Fear is in the farthest reaches of society and individuals, and we need to be vulnerable in a spiritual community to outline our fears, to be honest about our fears, and to face them together, because we don't face our fears alone. Because, like I said, we fear the unknown, which is the existence itself that we don't fully grasp. This is what God is. And the God is this infinite unity, which includes all sentient beings together as one right now. And so we actually have this immense support from everybody. We just don't know it. And we're all playing this little game, this little mental game where we perceive reality in this limited, separate way. We're all doing that. Like, literally millions and billions of people are doing that. And it just looks like we don't have support. But deep down, there's actually nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing technically to want, really. I think we're also afraid of that. It's such a different way of being. We're afraid of the true fearlessness in this world, because that means everything we care about is different. We don't really care if we die. We won't even care about having pain personally, because there is no personal. It's just this infinity. And nothing obstructs it. No amount of struggle or torture could ever obstruct infinity. So it's so different. It's so different than what we tend to do. And yet it's something we can't really grasp. We can't put a finger on it, because it's always changing. And we can't limit it. We can't say it's nothing like the ordinary life, and we can't say it's ordinary life. Chop wood, carry water before enlightenment, and then after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Maybe. That's the answer, maybe. Maybe sometimes enlightenment is that, maybe it's not. It could be move to warmer climate, drink coconut water, you know? It could be insulate the hut and fast a day, I don't know. It could be develop a system to transfer the water so you don't have to carry it. The point of that quote, Chomp would carry water before and after enlightenment, is to say that enlightenment might not be this spectacular thing, but we need to recognize it might not be this ordinary thing either. We can't really pin it down. It's limitless, it's infinite. And it's this ironic thing where we fear this fearless state. Because like I said, all of our greed is actually from fear. It's from fear of not having. It's from fear of difference. It's from fear of scarcity and lack. And maybe even, evolutionarily programmed reactions to scarcity and lack. And then conditioned patterns from this present world, the nurturing of our present life, to be successful and wealthy and luxurious and materialistic and consumerist and participate in this game of cat and mouse and this game of exploitation, even if we're ignorant of it. And so it's almost a fear of fitting in, a fear of other people's perceptions of us being good shit. And all that fear, greed, leads to anger. We get angry at others for not meeting our greeds, for not appeasing our fears. We get angry at the world for not giving us our individualistic wants, even if we perceive our individualistic wants as selfless. Like, I want a good world for everybody, so I'm angry at the people that make that hard, or the corporations that are obstacles to that, or the government and the governmental systems that choose greed and corruption over social ease, in whatever form that may be for people. And like in Buddhism, these are poisons. These are just tendencies that we learn and we perpetuate. They are not appropriate for love and enlightenment and being here with our true infinite selves, our true infinite beingness. And we get angry at everybody and everything. We're almost like trained at this point to want to be angry at other people, to feel powerful, to feel justified in our uncomfort. We want to avoid God existence so much because we're afraid of that uncertainty. And so we dive into these desire systems to appease that tension, that fear, that illusion of negativity, because there's nothing negative about death or pain or the uncertain realm of infinite existence. So we want to chase after illusions to appease that fear. And instead of holding ourselves accountable, which is what the truth is, this is the other tension, we are accountable for the desires we perpetuate internally and through action. We are accountable to the fears that we give into. We are accountable to our own lack of self-awareness, and we're accountable to attaching to limited notions rather than facing the infinite, facing the fear of true connection and uncertainty. So instead of facing that, anger is us putting it on some other life form, some other being, some other thing. We don't want to hold that in our own being. We don't want to face ourselves. We're just afraid of ourselves. So we get angry for not getting what we want. We blame others. We complain. And this is, like I say a lot of the times, rampant. It's in everybody. It's in beautiful people. People that are just trying to survive and do nice things to others in the world and just live a happy, decent, pleasurable life, they'll get angry at all sorts of stuff. Get angry at their coworkers for being different or saying certain words, angry at people on the internet for having different opinions or using language in a way they don't like, having anger at wealthy people for hoarding their wealth and contributing to corrupt patterns, and angry at landlords and bosses, and angry at their parents for not changing or teaching them well, or blame, complain, be angry, but we only hurt ourselves. We only contribute to the separation or the perceived separation we have with God, with infinity, with now, with this, with our own self, with our own existence, our own beingness. And it is toxic. Like the Buddhists say, I think in some it's a klesha, a toxin, or a poison, because it's just another step removed of that ignorant separation we've already been embodying and dancing with. And I'm talking about this because I feel like there might be, a couple people that would watch the previous videos about, no, God exists. Why are we reacting to the word God? What are you afraid of? I think that at least having an open, agnostic viewpoint is the most appropriate and honest. Refuting it with non-evidence based on limited data is also not appropriate to actually garner a figment of truth. And then using the word faith, another reactive term for people because of their limited associations. So there might be some irritation, defensiveness, anger that arises in that to defend our biases, to defend our greed, to have reality be a certain way, to have it seem a certain way to us, which is simply the fear of the limitless. Because no viewpoint suffices in terms of understanding reality and our true self. And so we're actually afraid of being limitless rather than seeing limited. And the anger is just a few steps after that happen usually. And what is the cause of our fear? It is, like the Buddhists say, it is ignorance. It's not realizing that it's boundless, that we are boundless, that it's one continuum, all permeating boundlessness without any level of definition or limitation. Whether you call it emptiness, or you call it Vishnu, or Allah, or you call it the Great One, or the Great Spirit, or enlightenment, or Buddhahood, or Godhood, or the semantics don't matter. That's what we've been trying to get at for thousands of years. It's like we're using language to help each other. We're not using language to limit each other and limit reality. And so, regardless of the beating the dead horse that I sometimes do with my rambling, I do think that there's lots of room to digest this sort of understanding and learn how to get past our ignorance of separation, the fear of the unknown, because the thing we're not separate from is just all incredible boundlessness. And then the greeds that we create and learn to hold our fears at bay, and then the angers we throw at everybody and everything to try and tantrum our way to get our desires met and, throw enough fire around to avoid facing our greeds, fears, and ignorance. And beyond these categories of, negative happenings, there are more in a way. There's many more ways to dance with illusion and create suffering than just these words I'm using of fear, greed, and anger. I think we need to calm our anger. And I find a lot of people, instead of changing their own being and their own mind and their own suffering and thus learning how that works psychologically and internally, learning how suffering is created and how we can appease it and change that, and thus being able to help others with their suffering, actually, people just get in this weird virtue signaling habit that's been going around for many years, where they denounce and cancel and protest and revolt against certain larger beings, almost like emergent beings of corporations and countries and governments, which aren't anything in itself. Like, you can hate Trump, but Trump's just an image amongst a huge network of corruption. And then also part of that network is not corruption. There are people that are just trying their best and mean well, and they're just good people, just like everything. So it's not this black and white thing a lot of times that people are getting righteous against, and so people don't learn to actually change themselves and see how to stop suffering. They just yell and complain, wanting difference, wanting change, yet they don't want to do it themselves, really. And I say this with love because that is what I see majority of the time. And it's a little sad. And there's almost this like activist area of life where some very, very few amount of people actually face the internal patterns and start to change those effectively, and their own external habits as well. But most are just yelling. Most are just complaining at the world. And then what happens is they don't learn how to engage with their own system and thus create effective change from the ground up. The ground is the ground of being, the ground of our existence and consciousness right now. That's all we have access to. Yelling really loud at, Monsanto or Israel or Russia or United States government or, Chinese ostracization of difference, or, the lithium cobalt mines around the world to make batteries. It's good to be aware of these things, but it's better to be able to do effective things against them. And we'll actually be more effective in our outreach of protesting and talking about the problems if we're collected and calm and rational, which happens with self-awareness. It happens with understanding our own beingness and learning how to create less and less suffering with that. We become more proactive and we become more effective on all fronts. And that's kind of that middle ground where I think is ideal, is not just hiding in a cave and being happy with, meditation and God, but also not just yelling at the world and never facing our own true beingness. Because we lose power when we do that. We lose effectiveness. I just bring all these things up. I talk about things that just arrive in my life. I just see people around me always like irritated and angry at something, myself included. And it's just like, yeah, that's because we're just greedy. And we're just greedy because we fear change. And we only fear change because we don't have faith in the infinite. Because we've been indoctrinated to think it's a cold, lifeless, random particle-based universe when it's not, because that's just a very limited theory that doesn't hold ground when we actually look at its constituent parts, which all good scientists earnestly know. So, I hope in the last 3 videos some people reacted a little bit so that they can face that portion of themselves. Because why react with anger, bias, fear, and agitation towards someone pointing at the truth of our being? Thank you so much for watching. Om Sai Ram.